Hello everybody and welcome back. I am your host Chase Bierenkoven. That is the 2025 Jeep Wrangler Rubicon 4xe and this is the Overrun. So we all know what the Jeep Wrangler is, right? It's the rugged off-roader that you buy by default when you want to go off-road. Of course, there are other competitors in the segment, like the Bronco and the Defender, but what makes this particular Wrangler stand out, in addition to it being the most off-road focused version, the Rubicon, this is also the 4xe, which is Jeep's version of a plug-in hybrid. So there's a 4-cylinder engine under the hood, as well as a set of electric motors and a battery, and you can plug this in and charge it, get about 26 miles of range out of it, and most importantly, do a little bit of silent off-roading before you need to turn the motor back on. And today we're going to go into what makes the 4xe stand out amongst its competitors, on top of what the Rubicon gets you, and, well, whether or not the JL Wrangler, which has been around for quite a while, is still the default choice for off-roading. Now, this powertrain is admittedly a little bit complicated. There's quite a lot going on under here. So, at the heart of this thing is a turbocharged 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. Replacing the alternator is another motor generator unit that makes like 40 horsepower or something. And then on top of that, there's another electric motor under the hood that helps drive the wheels, and that makes even more power. Total combined output for this is 375 horsepower and 470 pounds-feet of torque. I also want to point out that that total figure, this makes as much torque as the Wrangler Rubicon 392, the one with the Hemi engine in it. So there's a lot of torque on tap here. And there's also an okay-ish amount of electric range. On a charge, the battery reader displays that you'll get about 26 miles when the battery's full. It's probably more about 20, 21, which is what we've been seeing up here. Combined MPG, I understand that that metric is a little bit washy, but the trip computer tells us that we're getting about 20 combined, and that's by leaving this in 2-wheel drive. So fuel economy, even in spite of the hybrid system, is rather poor. So Joby and I are betting that you've seen a Jeep Wrangler before. So instead of our regular styling segment, I figure what we're gonna do instead is I'm gonna take you around the thing and I'm gonna show you some of the 4xe and Rubicon specific changes that the JL Wrangler benefits from. Starting at the front, you do get the steel bumper as standard, but this worn winch here, this is a $2,000 option. However, you do also get some recovery gear with it, including a pair of gloves actually, which is kind of nice in case you do really end up seriously stuck. Now let's move around the side and I'll show you a little bit more. Of course, all of these blue accents that you see throughout the truck, that's 4xe specific, other than, of course, the Rubicon badge. And then down the side, you'll also find that this is on 35-inch KO2 tires. You can, with the Extreme Off-Road package, go up to a 37-inch tire, which obviously grants you that much more ground clearance, that much more off-road capability. Let's come down the side here and I'll tell you some more Jeep stuff. These come off, of course, because Jeep things, but what I didn't know until I checked the Monroney is actually these quarter windows can be removed with the same T50 Torx bolt, which is kind of cool. One screwdriver just sits in the glove box, and then you can take everything off and enjoy it when it's not about to rain. Let's move down at the back and I'll show you some more. Obviously here you'll find full-size spare. There's also a backup camera, the resolution for which is a little shaky, but that's okay. There's another steel bumper back down, or yeah, that's steel. There's another steel bumper down here, along with some more recovery hooks. And well, really that's about it back here, other than a 4xe badge. And then we'll come over here. I want to show you the charging port real quick, because I think this is kind of a nice touch. This door, you hear that? Metal, which I think is kind of nice. And then of course there's some weather insulation in here so you can get to your combo port. I should point out, because I didn't earlier, this is a 14 kilowatt hour battery. And it. Okay, now I'm going to take you on a tour of the Rubicon 4xe's interior. But first, I have a little bit of complaining to do about this key. See, look. If your key is so big that it occupies the entire palm of my hand, I think that you have to go back to design school. It's too big, okay? It doesn't fit anywhere. I'm constantly reminded it's in my pocket. And I feel like when I walk around, it's so noticeable in my pocket that I'm showing people my special surprise, and that I shouldn't be allowed within a few hundred feet of a school. It's too big, okay? All right, and now we're gonna move on to the rest of the interior. Let's start with what it's like to sit in here. This is an extremely upright cabin, okay? And there's some pros and cons to that. There is some great headroom in here, but There's also the fact that the door is really close. Earlier today, I went to go and adjust the lumbar support on here, and I had to like move my sunglasses case out of the way to get to the lumbar switch on the seat. That's how close the door is to you. So there's that. Not everybody likes that. It definitely feels a little bit tight, but you can fix that with the push of a button, because this one has, and I'm forgetting the name, forgive me, it's Jeep's one-touch convertible top. It's part soft top, part hard top. It's a very cool solution to the Jeep let the outside in ethos. You can take out the rear quarter windows, as we mentioned earlier, and have a really great open air experience. It's very cool in here. I also want to do a little bit of complaining about the seats here. They look very nice. They're upholstered in leather. I like this Rubicon badging. The stitching down here is very nice, etc., etc. The seat back is really hard. It was like an hour and 30 minutes up here, and they were starting to wear a little bit thin on me just within that hour and 30 minutes. In addition to the fact that the downside of this here is that there's quite a lot of noise that gets into the cabin at highway speeds. It's not so bad around town, especially thanks to the electric drivetrain, but the noise, vibration, and harshness is definitely something that you're going to put up with in this interior. Anyways, let's also talk tech real quick. This screen was new for 2024. I believe it's 11 or 12 inches, and it's awesome. It's really responsive. It does everything you need it to and nothing you don't. Getting through the menus is super easy. It's generally really, really quick. You can access your cameras relatively quickly. There's also, this is cool, look, you can clean the camera, and it also does the back one too. So that's kind of cool. Obviously there's wireless phone connectivity, which is great. And then I'm gonna take you over here to show you the gauge cluster real quick. Come with me, dear viewer. All right, so gauge cluster, this is all physical in here, which is cool. I like that it shows you your charge read here as well as your power read, very Rolls-Royce. This can be moved around a little bit. You can go through a couple different efficiency and other settings here to see what's going on with the hybrid battery system. The display for it is very small though. This is actually your options here in terms of display. You've got 12% battery, and this is your total range, and then this over here is your fuel gauge. So it's a little bit confusing in here, but otherwise generally pretty easy to get through. I also love the fact that there is just an abundance of physical controls in here. That's also very true of the climate control system and the center stack here. All of this stuff is physical. Windows switches, climate, there's a button for everything. There's a button for the hybrid system maximum brake regen button so that it turns the brake regen up all the way just at the push of a button, which is great. There's a button to turn the screen off. There's some connectivity in here too. And then of course you have down here all of your off-road settings. This is for the diff lockers, your off-road plus drive mode, sway bar disconnect, and auxiliary settings if you want to put in, let's say like some lights or other accessories. You can wire them to these and have them turn on, which is a very cool feature that Ford also emulates in the Bronco. The overall tone in here is that this broadly feels like a pretty high quality interior. Even at $78,000, yeah, it starts to feel like a little bit cheap. Some of this stuff's a little scratchy, but like you have to remember that this starts at $36,000. Broadly speaking, I think that this is a really solid interior. Just make sure you can put up with the seats and make sure that you can fit. And now let's go get him back and I'll give you a little bit more of a tour there. Let's talk about the back seat, but I also really quickly want to talk about these doors. They are, as you can see, very small. It's only about as wide as my forearm, and the opening is pretty narrow. It's cool that you can take them off, but if you're loading cargo or kids in and out of the Jeep, both in front and in back, it can be a little bit tight back here. I also want to point out before I do, these seats don't fold all the way flat. We talked about this more in our cargo segment, but I just wanted to show you guys real quick just how not flat they fold. Hello everybody, Future Chase here to fix present tense Chase's mistake. The seats do in fact fold flat. Joby discovered this morning, and I am a big fat idiot. You can do that instead. Please disregard what I say in the next segment about the seats not getting entirely flat. I feel like I have a lot of room back here, and I'm not just saying that because all of this is open. The speaker grill thing, if I were tall, I'd be a little worried about conking my head on here. But luckily I'm a short king and I don't have to worry about trivial problems like that. There's a lot going on down here too. There's 2 window switches, obviously, for each of the 2 windows, and there's a good amount of connectivity down here. You can see there's 2 USB-C and 2 USB-A ports, as well as a 115 volt AC for all your charging needs. These floor mats are great. It keeps out all the dirt. These seats are actually softer than the front seats for whatever reason. I feel like the backrest is a lot softer. These are almost more comfortable to sit in because they're a little squishier. So I guess if you're going on a long, I guess if you're going on a long drive, try and get in the back seats. That's really all there is that's going on back here. So next, let's talk cargo space, because there are some sacrifices you have to make with the 4xe and a Jeep as a whole. For one, there's this swing tailgate, which is kind of nice because you have an open load area, but also not nice because when you're in a parking lot and there's a car behind you, it's very difficult to get things in here. And then of course you also have to open this to get this open. That's kind of a sacrifice that the JL Wrangler chose to make, and it kind of is what it is. But back here, you can see there's a pretty decent amount of room. This is a 48-quart cooler we've got back here. Joby and I took this camping for the weekend, and all of our gear fit with the seats down. Other than that, there's the charging cabling back here, which if you take it out, you could, I guess, use for storage as well. The final thing that I do want to point out is that the roll bars here cut into your storage room quite a lot. You can see that if this were more of a unibody construction, the cargo area would be a lot wider. And so this cargo area particularly is much smaller than the ones that you'll find in both the Ford Bronco and of course the Land Rover Defender, which is the largest and most practical of the three. Okay, so let's talk about the money, because there is a lot of it involved in this equation. The Wrangler Rubicon 4xe starts at $61,000. This car here with the Warren winch and a couple of other options, $78,885. Now that's obviously a ton of money for a Jeep. The JL Wrangler starts at like $36,000 for a two-door with the V6 and a stick. So that's a big jump. And Jeep's justification for that is that there isn't another plug-in hybrid on the market right now, or a plug-in hybrid off-roader, I should say, on the market right now. And that's a pretty unique position to occupy in the market. And I guess that you can kind of charge what you want at that price point. Does it feel worth it? We'll talk more about that at the end. So let's talk competitors to the Jeep Wrangler. We're obviously acknowledging that the 4xe kind of stands alone for now, and that's very intentional on Jeep's part. There are alternatives, and one of them is, I think, the most direct one, the Ford Bronco. You can start at about $40,000 on those, and that ranges up to $77,000, and you get a lot of the Jeep experience out of the Ford Bronco. You get some variety of removable roof, a manual transmission if you want it, 2 or 4 doors, a range of off-roadiness, whether it be tire sizes, locking differentials, drive modes, the works. There's also a ton of customization that you can do with the Bronco, just like the Jeep. However, this is also $78,000, and if you're going to spend that kind of money, it may be worth considering something a little bit more luxurious given that rather luxury-sounding price point. And that alternative is, of course, the Land Rover Defender. Now, that starts a little bit cheaper than you'd think, at about $60,000, but you can also spend up to $153,000 for the Defender Octa. The Defender is, of course, a much more luxurious SUV. It has an inline-6 mild hybrid powertrain that is much more refined than the Bronco's V6. This V6, this 4-cylinder, the V8, all of it. It is a much smoother and more refined experience all around. You can option air suspension, and really the sky is the limit when it comes to making your Defender a more luxurious off-road alternative to something like the Jeep Wrangler. Okay, so let's drive the Wrangler. I am going to lead in by talking about what this thing is like on the road. Obviously, we are very much not on the road right now, but I do want to give you a little bit of a rundown there first. Around town, having the hybrid system is just as nice as it is up here. It helps boost fuel economy, of course, in addition to the fact that if you wanted to and you worked close enough to your house, you could drive this thing conceivably year-round on battery power alone. It charges reasonably quickly. It's only a 14 kilowatt hour battery, so your charge times are going to be low, pretty much regardless of the voltage that you're putting into the thing. It's also a little bit loud on the highway, of course. We talked about that just a touch in our interior segment. This open roof experience does require that you make some concessions. But off-road, suddenly the whole atmosphere, the Jeep thing comes together, right? This is really nice to drive off-road. The Rubicon models have had for a very long time electronically disconnecting sway bars, which is great off-road. You get more wheel articulation. It also has the added side benefit of making the ride significantly more comfortable because the wheels are able to move more without moving the body around on top of that. But of course, this is the 4xe. And so the cool thing is if you listen for just a moment, you can hear the gasoline engine, and then totally quiet. And that is the coolest thing about the 4xe. Doing this off-roading completely silently, when you hear nothing but the gravel under the tires, is really, really, really super cool. It's a totally unique, almost a little bit surreal and alien experience to have. It's the argument that this truck makes, SUV, whatever you want to call it, makes for itself is the silent off-road capability. And it's really, really, really cool to just be able to tool around here totally silently, look up at the tops of the trees, take the doors off if you want. That's the Jeep thing now, and that's really cool, and it's why you would want to buy a Wrangler 4xe. Let's wrap it up and maybe ditch the Captain Morgan first. The Jeep Wrangler 4xe is a really enticing proposition if you're maybe a little bit EV curious, or you think that a plug-in hybrid might fit well into your life, but you still like this, coming out here, doing this, right? I like it too. I like this equation. I love the fact that you can do the silent off-roading. It's a totally different experience if you've ever been off-roading in a gas-powered vehicle. It's really, really appealing, and it's something that I really like about the Wrangler 4xe. And I'm willing to make some of those other traditional off-roader concessions: ride, interior quality, noise, vibration, and harshness, all of that I'm willing to put up with for the rather unique experience that this provides. I feel like if it were in my life, it would add a lot to it. There is, of course, a limitless amount of customization that you can do to really make one of these your own, and that's also an extremely appealing part of the equation. But you have to be willing to put up some really serious cash for one of these. Right? The base Rubicon is 61. Like we said, this is $77,000, $78,000. It's a ton of money. It's luxury car money for a Jeep. And so long as you're willing to stomach that, there is a lot here. But that price point is a really, really big asterisk. And it's ultimately going to come down to you, dear viewer, whether you're willing to ignore that asterisk. And with that said, I think it's probably time to wrap things up. Before we go, again, I just want to give the usual disclosure. Please do remember to like and subscribe. It helps the channel grow so much. It helps our metrics, it helps us keep making videos, it helps me keep finding an excuse to talk about cars in pretty places, and I really like doing that. So please remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.